been talking about reparations since the end of slavery, pretty much. 40 acres and a mule. Everybody's been trying to get us reparations. I mean, they got all these different people in Congress. I know Charles Blow has spoken before Congress trying to get us reparations. How's your group any different?
Well, first of all, back to what Chad was saying, the distinction, American descendants of slavery. The reason why we need that distinction is because when you say African American, you can be from any part of the world. You can be from Africa and be in America. You can be born by way of African parents in America and be coined as African American.
Right.
You can come from the Caribbean and now you're Caribbean American. So we need that distinction of American descendants of slavery to embrace being from this country because we have a justice claim. That is reparations. When we say American descendants of slavery, that means you were brought here and your ancestors were enslaved here. They were the shoes, they were the machines, and all of the wealth that you see in this country is a byproduct of our ancestors' enslavements. So we need that distinction because, as you mentioned prior, not everybody is entitled to the reparations in this country. Sure, the Caribbean
have CARICOM. They have CARICOM.
Okay.
The Africans can take up their issues with their colonizers, but we don't have any issues with our immigrant brothers and sisters. But I can tell you this, it's masking our failure in this country.
Okay.
Because the government expects for us to eat slavery. We're supposed to eat the slavery in this country. And I want to also make this distinction, that reparations is not just for slavery, but it's for accrued, ongoing, systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage
we understand
in
that
the country our ancestors built with their lives. So I need that distinction because folks always want to say slavery was a bazillion years ago. No, it wasn't.
It's still going on pretty much.
It's still going on through
things.
private prison industrial complex.
We're still being oppressed, Angela.
We're still being oppressed.
So, but slavery started brought here 400 years ago because the year returned. Ghana went to Ghana last year. And so are you saying that if you were brought here, your ancestors, you can prove that your ancestors were brought here to this particular country, not dropped off in Jamaica, not dropped off in the Caribbean.
That's right.
I'm just letting you know because I want to make sure. And they, after slavery ended, you have to make a distinction that they stayed in this country and the lineage goes back to that.
You're in the lineage.
Okay.
Like I was saying, it's not that Jamaicans and Caribbean people aren't owed reparations. We're all for them getting their reparations. But let me ask you this. Am I able to leave this country and go to the Caribbean and collect whatever repair they get through CARICOM?
Okay.
And I've heard it put well in an analogy. If a Coke truck hits you and a Pepsi truck hits me, Coke owes you, Pepsi owes me.
Okay.
I cannot go and then say, Coke, you owe me for hitting Mike, right? So we have a specific claim in America against the U.S. government for 2 centuries plus of slavery, plus an additional century, 150 years of Jim Crow, convict leasing, black codes, redlining, gentrification, drug war, lynching. The list goes on and on.
There's like $5 to $10 trillion that I heard that this country generated.
Okay.
Generated.
Okay.
Due to the oppression and the atrocities of slavery, white wealth that maybe we're owed as far as reparations concerned. You're telling Donny.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, but here's the thing. But Donny, Jamaica, and I actually like what Jamaica has done. I'm not sure about all of the countries in CARICOM, but what Jamaica has said, and I think it's an important question. Jamaica has said if your family had left, they left, you know, the island of Jamaica, the country of Jamaica, your reparations will follow you. Jamaica has made that distinction in terms of how they intend to pay out. And so I think that your money is still going to come to you by way of your father, by way of Jamaica, because they've already made that statement. America, you know, America hasn't made a statement. We're trying to make the statement.
But all black people who have been in this country and still been oppressed, even if they did not come over here before slavery ended or whatnot have still suffered the atrocities, like you mentioned, Jim Crow, gone through it. So you're trying to tell me, like Donny, if my family came from Africa in the 1900s and they still suffered some of the same racism, some of the same prejudices, still building this country and dealing with all the issues and being left behind because of the color of their skin, that they're not owed any of that money.
Well, let me help you with a statistic, okay, to let you know that black immigrants actually are faring better in this country than we are as descendants of American slavery.
How is that?
Out of 107 trillion household dollars, white people share $100 trillion.
90%.
90% of blacks share $700 billion. 10% of blacks share $2.3 trillion. So what I'm trying to say is, of the 36 million black people in this country, 90% of us descend from American slavery. 10% of us are other. So if you're talking 90% of us sharing 700 billion, 10% are sharing 2.3 trillion, then who is owed the reparations? The immigrants that come here, that generally descend from money. Some of them descend from slave traders in Africa. Who is owed that money? And I'm saying that if they descend from slave traders, why should they get a check? They come over here with money.
Right.
You can't get into this country if you're black without money.
Right.
And so you come over here and you kind of double dip. We don't know if you descend from slave traders. But you're over here and you're identifying, not from the Caribbean, I'm dealing with Africa.
Okay.
We don't know if you descend from slave traders, but now you're able to come over here. You have a certain wealth position if you're in this country. Oftentimes, if you're in the Hollywood industry.
You did not say Hollywood.
That's kind of a natural.
Some people refer to it as Hollywood.
You know, they're actually hiring a lot of British trained actors.
Yes.
Things that we, as the 90% that share the 700 billion, can never afford to do. So what I'm saying is, they come from a wealth position from overseas, and then they come and they check the box off as African American to get entitlements.
They get entitlements
that were due us.
I get it.
I think we also have to make
it's also a timing issue.
A timing issue, a distinction about immigration and when the majority of black immigration occurred. Prior to 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act, the amount of black immigrants in America was to the right of the decimal point.
Right.
So we were very much a monolith. You said Negro, there was no question of who you were talking about in this country. So what we see now are a lot of black immigrants that are first, second generation. And I know my sisters here, their folks go back into the 17th century just like my folks. You know, I'm a Mississippi boy. That's where I come from. So, you know, my grandmother tells me stories about being the daughter of sharecroppers. She lived through Jim Crow. So that's a unique sort of situation and a lived and shared experience that black immigrants don't necessarily share.
I totally agree with everything you guys are saying right now. But, you know, Donny, I'm pretty sure you're shaking your head.
Donny's feelings still hurt.
I want Donny to jump in.
I'm not hurt. I'm just like, we all got on that boat and they came and kidnapped us, and we all deserve some change. And I don't care if you come from Africa, I don't care if you come from Jamaica, if you got dropped off there first, we deserve the money first because our people, then we came up over here. You know what I'm saying?
That's the operative word. You came here. We were brought to these shores to work under the heinous free chattel slave labor in this country. The most heinous in the world is what our people endured. And when I see the police murdering us with impunity, I really don't see a lot of immigrants, not that I want to see that, but what I'm trying to share here is that these are poor black people that descend from slavery in this country that you see being annihilated, that you see being miseducated, that you see being pushed out of their communities, that you see. Let me give you a stat here.
Hold on, Angie, because I got to stop you. I got to push back a little bit because
but my mama came from Texas. So we really deserve some money. So just
then you get a check. She sounds like an American descendant of slavery.
Right, she is.
Right.
Then you get a check.
Exactly. How do you determine? Because you got to do the 23andMe. How do you prove?
No, let me jump in here. My family, I come from the United Martin family. That is the United Martin family is one of the largest black families in America who can actually, there's a bill of sale. We have a significant amount of history on Tracy, which is my great-great-great-grandmother, 7 generations back, who came, her bill of sale says she came from the Congo. She was purchased by a woman, a white woman, in Charleston, South Carolina, and she wound up in Jenkinsville and was purchased by the Martin family 2 more times, and bam, we a bunch of mulattoes, we those people, okay? The Martins were Irish people. They came here in like the 1720s. They immigrated to the United States. Within 2 generations, they were slave-owning farmers. And so for me, that's one leg of my family. But me personally, I'm also indigenous. Shinnecock Nation over in the most, where all the people want to go, the wealthy people in New York, Long Island want to go to the Hamptons. That's where the Shinnecock Nation is. Right. I also have Caribbean heritage. I have a great-grandfather who married the Shinnecock woman who shook sugar plantation slavery in Barbados. The Fentys. Hey, Rihanna. So the Fenty family from Barbados. So I feel like in terms of who I am as a person, I'm very ingrained in the totality of the United States of America's history, in terms of the white Irish, in terms of the African slave, in terms of the indigenous population, in terms of 1912 coming over from Barbados. Okay. That's when my great-grandfather came. But
hold on, Fred, I want to say this. I want to end this. If we all have a white man's last name, we all should get money. Okay?
Just
because
quickly,
we all have white man's last name. What's your last name?
Jones.
That's a white man's last name.
Well, he has a point.
Okay.
But even greater than that, this country and the government knows clearly who descends from slavery in this country.
Okay.
Let me help you.
Go ahead.
Because we were insured. Our ancestors were insured, and you're right. To your point, we carry our master's last name.
Right. Okay. So
when they act oblivious, don't believe the hype.
Okay, but are they going to tell us? And how do we prove that we are?
We have
that lineage.
We've set forth criteria that's based in the research and work of Dr. William Darity, Duke professor, a renowned economist, and the leading authority on reparations. He sets forth 3 criteria. Number 1, that you can trace at least one ancestor back to American chattel slavery.
Okay.
Number 2, that at least 10 years prior to the onset of any reparations program, you have identified as Black, African American, or Negro. And then if for cases of mixed race, that you're able to show a grandparent that meets both of those criteria. So we have the criteria already. There is no purity test. There is no genetic test or anything of that nature. It really is identifying, and back to what Angela was saying, America kept immaculate records of their slaves.
Where do we find these records?
Help us out. Help us find these records of this country. Okay. Yeah, ADOS Los Angeles, for the ending of the year, we really wanted to end the year based and steeped in our lineage. And so the Church of Latter-day Saints, right over here in West LA on Wilshire Boulevard, a beautiful facility. They have a library. They have librarians that are trained genealogists. We had someone go with us. They traced their history back to the UK to the 1400s.
Wow.
From one trip. That was our first trip. And we're going to continue to do more because we want people to take the time. We had a meeting with Karen Bass. And just like I shared my family history here today, I shared the history with her, and she was a little bit in awe.
Tell the people who Karen Bass is.
Karen Bass is the chairwoman of the Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus. Right. She is also my, she's my congresswoman also here in Los Angeles. But she had challenges with her family's history. But I would challenge any African American, whether you came by way of Jamaica, whether you are steeped in ADOS or not, to actually go through those records, because the records are so extensive. I mean, slave roles. They have indigenous roles.
Right.
You can do a deeper dive than you may have thought. I was very fortunate. On my mom's side, my great-grandmother died in 2012. She was 107 years old. Most people don't have the ability to even have that conversation with a grandparent, let alone a great-grandparent.
Right.
But that Church of Latter-day Saints, I don't know why they started collecting this information, but they did a fantastic job. And we have to use those resources. They're not just in Los Angeles. You can go to their website. You can figure out the city closest to you and start doing the work. And if you actually hit a stopping point, on my mom's side, the family's from North Carolina, father's side, South Carolina, then you might have to go to the local church. You know, you might have to go to Mary's Chapel down there in Skyler Neck, North Carolina.
Like you said, there are records for everybody out there. You can find out where your history and how your lineage came about and how you got to this country and when you were brought here to this country. I understand that. And luckily for me, my mom has done the same thing. So I know I'm eligible to get some of that. You know what I'm saying? I know. Don't let the light skin fool you. I get a check. You get a check. You get a check.